I believe that the coming confrontation between China and Taiwan will lead to fallouts much greater than what we saw with Russia and Ukraine. I believe that the Russia and Ukraine war has been nurtured and propagated in the Western states to hide and mask a lot of things, a lot of crimes that have been committed on both Ukraine and our side, as well as Russia, and also in an attempt to not only hide those crimes, but also hide an economic fallout that's happening all around the world. I believe that as what's going on with Ukraine and Russia mellows out, we will see China move into Taiwan, and it will be quick, it'll be fierce, and the fallout will be economic, not just in other ways. I believe that we are going to see great loss when it comes to treaties being broken, agreements that have stood the test of time, decades-old agreements broken. We're going to see supply chain collapse, and we're going to see a lot of things that happen that most people would not expect. And I've only gotten a small glimpse or a small taste of those corrections through the Ukraine and Russia war. Just the other day, this story came out a few hours ago out of the Wall Street Journal. It's entitled, "China's Fighter Jets Aren't Just Flying Around Taiwan, They're Practicing." As of recently, Chinese fighter jets are pushing closer and closer. We're talking about a lot of them. They're ramping up the rhetoric. They are beating the war drums, not just China, but the US really is beating those war drums. And so let's just check this out. A surge in activity shows Chinese honing ability to block US military from responding to an invasion. China has sent some of its largest swarms of jet fighters and warships into the air and waters around Taiwan this month. They have been accompanied by an unusual silence. While previous Chinese drills of similar scale were paired with waves of propaganda meant to intimidate the self-ruled island, Beijing has said next to nothing about the recent exercises. That means something. Something's different. Something's changing. That silence is a sign that the recent activity is less about delivering a political message. Taiwanese authorities and defense analysts say that than about training, China's military is trying to sharpen its ability to encircle Taiwan, neutralize the island's natural advantages, and block the US from coming to the rescue in the event of an invasion. Communist Party leaders in Beijing regard Taiwan as part of China and have vowed to take control of it by force if necessary. And that phrase, by force if necessary, is very important because China came out years ago and saying they're exposing their complete intentions of taking this over. And they said, we're going to do it peacefully or we're going to do it by force. What do you want? And we're seeing the US getting involved. And most people do not realize that the old leadership of China that was ousted, I believe it was in the 50s or 60s, correct me down below, they ran to Taiwan. And the Chinese that ousted them have not forgotten this. And it's very important that people realize how bad China wants those semiconductor plants. It says here, during one day earlier this week, Taiwan's military detected 103 Chinese military aircraft in areas around the island, a recent high including 40 that entered the island's air defense identification zone. The next day, 55 aircraft flew sorties near Taiwan, the Taiwanese defense minister said. Let me stop there and say that one thing that China is doing is they're waiting for the US's reaction, both verbally, the rhetoric that comes out of the White House, and to see if the US starts to deploy carrier groups in that direction. They're waiting, they're being quiet. China knows one thing that the White House doesn't. They know, because this guy can't play chess, we're talking about Biden. They know that silence is the most important tool, and the first one that speaks in the conversation is usually the one that loses. Notably, the Chinese sorties have included an increasing number of Y-20 transport and refueling aircraft, flying alongside jet fighters the east of Taiwan, that suggests an intensified focus on improving the fighters' long-range combat capabilities, military analysts said. Taipei has long considered geographically one of its greatest advantages in the event of a Chinese invasion, with a steep spine of mountains forming a natural barrier to enemy troops marching over from the west. For years, the Taiwanese military strategy has been to maintain a stronghold on the east coast, where it hoped to hold out long enough for the U.S. to send help. The presence of U.S. forces in waters surrounding Taiwan would add to the territorial and operational constraints that already make the invasion scenario challenging for the Chinese military. I want to remind you of something that happened while Donald Rumsfeld was the Secretary of Defense, and it got very little play. Please let me know down below if you remember what I'm talking about. But there was this week where a reporter, a journalist, photographed a stealth fighter, a Chinese stealth fighter on a runway, and it was all the buzz. And the Pentagon came out and said, it's fake, it's not real. They knew what was going on, but they wanted to keep lying, perpetrating this lie to the US people that we're in control, we're the number one. At the same time, China was building all at once a fleet of carriers to rival ours, all in one whack. And Donald Rumsfeld went to a very important meeting because China wanted to make sure that it was well televised because they had a surprise to embarrass the US. And this got very little play. But Donald Rumsfeld was walking on the Great Wall of China with the president. And the president waited for a very special moment, and he was given a signal, and he turned to Donald Rumsfeld and he said, so I hear there's, and I'm paraphrasing, there's a lot of chatter about us having a stealth fighter because that would rival the US. Donald Rumsfeld was totally taken off by this, just taken back by this question. And he says, well, let's bring this out in the open. Let's show you our fleet of stealth fighters. And he puts his arm out, and instantly a barrage of stealth fighters fly over. This was done on purpose. This was way more than banging war drums or saber rattling. This was a sign that China had secretly, unbeknownst to the American people, and I do not believe that the FBI, the CIA, or whatever three-letter agencies out there were complicit, or they knew this was going on. And they did it in a way to embarrass US policymakers. And the facts are, and I heard this a lot when I first started the channel, you got to beware of China because they are using our money, our steel, and they are building an infrastructure that you wouldn't believe. While our country is having fun laughing at them for building ghost cities, we should be the ones that are getting laughed at for losing economic control of this world. They are building so much infrastructure, so many battle carrier groups, it's insane right now. And they have bought and paid for our current White House. I want you to understand that when, and this isn't my words, this is China's words, when they move into Taiwan, the US will continue to lie, and they will take down markets, and they will blame them. Just like countries all over the world have blamed all of the bad things that are happening to you as a consumer because of supply chain shortages, increase in prices, inflation, on Russia, they're going to do the same thing to China. And trust me, China, mark my words, they are working very closely with Russia because both of them are playing chess. And we have a president that couldn't even pick up a checker and jump another one. This is a very serious time. Now it says here, the presence of US forces in waters surrounding Taiwan would add to the territorial and operational constraints that already make the invasion challenging for the Chinese military. So the People's Liberation Army in China's military has made a priority of blocking a US response, a strategy called anti-access area denial, or A2AD. They're getting better. And I think this drill is kind of proof that they're trying, said Ben Lewis, an independent military analyst based in Washington, D.C., who has been tracking daily PLA activities for almost 2 years. We will surely study the PLA's likely courses of action and plan for proper response measures, said Major General Sun Lifeng, a spokesperson for Taiwan's Ministry of National Defense. The closer the PLA's aircraft are to Taiwan, the stronger our countermeasures will be. Taiwan's military has tracked an increasing number of Chinese fighter jets and drones on the east side of the island, suggesting the PLA is expanding its ability to encircle the island. You see, this channel is way more than just financial information, because everything that happens around the world affects our finances, our economy. And if our economy goes down and we lose the wealth of the nations, we lose control. And there are some people, they're called globalists, that do not care about the country they grew up in. They care only about power. So that's why we have to care. You know, there were people during the Revolutionary War that did not care what was going on in Europe. They were happy with what was going on here. They were making lives for themselves. It wasn't until the Redcoats came, intending to kill them, burn down their farms, destroy their livelihood, that people got involved. That's why something like this is very important. Both China and Russia are leading a charge of so many nations called the BRICS Alliance to destroy our way of life. Do I disagree with what they're doing? I actually don't, because they're fed up. They've been starved and sanctioned and treated like cattle, as we, for decades, as the United States, have exported our inflation to all of them, treating them like third-rate human beings. I don't blame them, but at the same time, I don't want this to happen. So we have to come together as people and get prepared. Oust our politicians, keep the wealth in the middle class, or we're going to lose our country, and ultimately we'll end up in World War III. I hope you got something out of this. I thank you to everybody that continually shares these videos and makes channels like this stronger, because our voice needs to be heard, because the mainstream media is too busy doing the White House's bidding. Hope you have a great day. The Economic Ninja is out.